Join me as I dive into some of the most shocking cases of missing children that will leave you absolutely speechless. As they fished at a campground on the Big South Trail in the Arbo and Roosevelt National Forest in Colorado on October 2nd, 1999, two men discovered a youngster named Jared Adlero. About 80 to 90 feet ahead, the youngster was colliding with a group of hikers who mistook him for one of them. They had a little chat before Jared bolted off in the direction of the others. There will be no further sightings of him after this. Alan Adlero Allen, the father of Jared and Jocelyn, was the one responsible for getting the 3-year-old into that sticky scenario. Alan was entertaining 11 members of the Christian Singles Network group, together with his 2 daughters, at a resort he shared with his brother. Alan had been very engaged with this local religious organization. It was the kids' desire to see a fish hatchery that led to the event on that particular day. Despite Alan's initial reluctance, he eventually gave up when the other members promised to return with the children after seeing the hatchery. Out of the blue, Alan's intended visit turned into a 15-mile journey starting at around 10 a.m. along the Big South Trail for reasons he has no idea about. Going on a lengthy walk without Jared and Jocelyn's dad's consent was one of the group's many blunders. The failure to assume direct responsibility for the kids was the second, and perhaps most grave, mistake. Their mistake was thinking that someone else would be responsible for their care. Worse still, the hikers had divided into 2 groups, with one group proceeding at a quicker pace than the other. Due to their separation, the children's whereabouts could hardly be monitored. About 15 and a half hours into the trek, Jared bolted in the direction of another band of trekkers. It is not apparent whether he was still in the middle of the 2 groups of hikers or had already passed them. The Christian group freaked out when they learned it had been more than an hour since they last saw Jared. After hearing the news, Alan spent no time getting in his frenzied car and racing to the path, all the while pounding his chest and muttering, "They lost my baby." The resort management, meanwhile, had the rangers join the hunt after filing a missing persons report. On October 7th, a diving team, a jet, 20-plus professional searchers, a dozen dog teams, and expert trackers were all working tirelessly to find Jared, or any clues that may explain his terrible disappearance. They had been searching for 5 days without success. 2 hikers, Rob Osborne and Gary Watts, discovered ragged clothing and a shoe around 500 feet above Jared's last known position on June 4th, 2003, breaking the cold case of Jared. Without delay, they established the link and alerted the proper authorities. The mystery of what became of Jared persists, even in light of these fresh clues. The most obvious theory is that he became disoriented and died of cold after venturing out on his own in the highlands. Unfortunately, the location of his remains is very difficult to reach because of the rugged and hilly landscape. The most likely explanation is that a cougar attacked him. Cougars are common in the region and could readily prey on a toddler. Even now, nobody knows what happened to Jared Farah, and his case is still shrouded in mystery. After a vacation to Mexico, the Gabarra family came home to find Petty and Lizette in bed. This happened on March 21st, 2010. Nanny Erica tried to wake Pet up the next morning by entering her room, but she was nowhere to be found. In her pursuit of Peta, she flipped the house upside down and ultimately informed the children's mother, Lizette Farah. A poster outlining Pete's predicament was hastily produced and distributed around the area by the Attorney General's office. The disappearance of Pet became national news because Lizette's sister Arlaise also shared images on social media which went viral. Nothing came of Lizette's attempts, including a broadcast statement in which she begged possible kidnappers to restore her daughter. The discovery of Pete's dead corpse, wedged between the mattress and the foot of the bed, took place in her own room on March 31st. This should have concluded Pete's case, but there were too many red flags related to her disappearance to disregard. Perhaps one or both of Pete's parents hid her corpse beneath the mattress after the first searches had ended, rather than while they were looking for her. The official autopsy report states that Pete got on the bed by herself and hit her head on the space between the frame and the mattress. Before her nanny, Erica, could come searching for her in the morning, she had already deteriorated and died. Nevertheless, there is an abundance of data that goes against this official stance. Investigators uncovered several concealed blood spots in the sheets, including some that were the size of a soccer ball, as seen in the official footage of the body's discovery. An investigator went so far as to say that they accused the parents of physically abusing the child. Regardless, the official report totally disregarded the possibility of physical abuse, and for some reason failed to include the bloodstains. Alberto Baz resigned as Attorney General of Mexico due to the widespread uproar this episode produced in Mexico. The parents allegedly came up with a complex plan to conceal their crime while milking media attention, and one of them may have inadvertently killed Pet while assaulting her. Everything points to a cover-up by the police. Lucy Meadows, a little child of 3 years old, went missing from Goodlettsville, Tennessee's Rivergate Mall on July 25, 1996. A Korean immigrant named Jan Meadows was under suspicion of the murder. Meadows had just split from her husband, Tom, and was living with another Korean lady named Tammy. After a few weeks of saying she just glanced aside for a few seconds before Lucy vanished, she revised her tale to say she could have been occupied for 10 to 15 minutes. Jan was immediately implicated in Lucy's disappearance due to this abrupt shift. No evidence against Jan or Tammy was uncovered, despite the intensive examination of the Meadows house farm and the surrounding region by the police and the FBI. For the subsequent 18 years, no new information emerged in the unsolved case. An eyewitness testified in November 2004 that she had seen Lucy sprawled out on a blanket at her house, perhaps dead, the day before she was reported missing. The eyewitness, who is the son of Daniel Tammy, would have been 11 years old when the event occurred. Lucy was probably deceased before her supposed abduction on July 25th, when the case started to fall apart. Jan deftly concealed the reality by disposing of her corpse and fabricating the abduction narrative. Any number of serious forms of abuse or neglect might have contributed to Lucy's demise. Given that Jan and Tammy have kept quiet for more than 28 years, it seems doubtful that they will soon come clean. Another witness may come forward at a later date, and the Goodlettsville Police Department is keeping the investigation open. Jan and Tammy are not expected to confess anytime soon, but the Goodlettsville Police Department is still investigating the matter. On November 23, 1997, the first video of Sabrina, the daughter of Florida couple Steve and Marlene Eisenberg, was captured. Sabrina was about 5 months old at the time. After putting their 3 children to bed, the parents watched a Disney film with them. Marlene went to bed after checking on her daughter about midnight. However, the next morning she discovered Sabrina gone and her garage door ajar. The lovers realized that they were largely to blame for Sabrina's abduction. The previous night, they had neglected to lock the garage door. The purported abduction sparked the biggest manhunt in Florida history as police set out to find him. As we dug further into Sabrina's room, we found some puzzling footprints and fingerprints next to her cot. Someone should have taken Sabrina already, and this should have proved it. The police, however, were having a hard time locating any further leading evidence that would help them apprehend the criminal. But instead of looking forth, they turned within, watching Steve and Marlene. The parents of Sabrina were asked to undergo polygraph exams and were repeatedly called for extensive questioning. The results from Arlene's exams were inconclusive because of the stress she was under, but Steve passed all of them. It seemed as if the HUPs had already decided that Steve and Marlene were the offenders and were only seeking proof to back up this belief. The truth of Marlene's emotions for her daughter was put into doubt when she was told to seem distant and unkind on television. Marlene and Steve retained legal representation because they had lost interest in cooperating with the authorities. The court authorized the police to place covert listening devices in their house on December 12, 1997. These devices stayed turned on for over 3 months, recording more than 2,600 talks between the couple. Claiming to have discovered proof of the couple's admission to Sabrina's murder, the police used these recordings to construct a case against Stephen and Marlene. In a YouTube comment, an elderly neighbor defended the Eisenbergs, saying that they were about half a mile away when the tragedy happened and that they were caring for a young boy who was 6 months old at the time. Because of all the media coverage of the case, the Eisenbergs knew someone who knew the mother. Over 27 years have passed since Sabrina vanished, and nobody knows for sure if she lived or died. The Eisenbergs are still trying to figure out who abducted their daughter and have not given up hope.